allergies, wellness practices, and thoughts and prayers. So last week I did a podcast that talked very, very, very briefly about seasonal allergies. And all I said was that if it's allergy season for you and you're a sufferer and you take things on a regular basis, now's the time. You want to start before and you want to take it straight on through. That's all I said. That's not unreasonable. That's not something that needs to be controversial, right? It's nothing big, right? We got feedback. We can say feedback. There was a few responses to that content, especially when we shared outside of our normal audience, our normal listeners. We went to the World Wide Web, especially via social media. Those responses made me raise my eyebrows, but not at the response. Of course, I'd say in my, pre-show affirmation that I'm not beating up on individual people and what they believe, but I was kind of like, how the heck did people get to that place? What did they hear and when to make them say the things that they're saying? The response that I saw the most to my true holistic care plan, by the way, for allergies, was like there was two comments that stuck out to me. So one was, but what about holistic preventatives like a clean diet and working with herbs that build the immune system and help with histamine, rather than taking antihistamines or antihistamine supplements, right? And then the other one was, or you could concentrate on improving your diet, which will massively reduce or even remove the allergies you suffer from. This is a much better option than jumping to medical solutions to the symptoms, in my view. On the surface, I guess those sentiments seem reasonable. If I went on a national podcast tomorrow. Like if I did that, if I went on a national podcast and I said those things in my usual convincing manner, I'd be flooded with new supporters. I'd have a lot of new fans, man, subscribers, customers, all of that stuff. I know that this person or the people that were saying this stuff they've never really had allergies. And I know that they get that Americans don't put enough emphasis on the lifestyle domains. That's what they're really saying, is that we need to put emphasis on that stuff. But it reminds me of the whole thoughts and prayers thing that goes on a lot in our country. It's not really valuable to say thoughts and prayers. It doesn't help solve any problems. A famous comedian actually once said, it's when people say thoughts and prayers, it's just a way for them to say, don't forget about me during this crisis, right? So there's 4 things here that I want to say to tackle this thing because it seems innocuous, but I want to really kind of dig to the heart of this. And I'm going to disclose why I'm even talking about these 2 very basic sentiments somewhere in the middle. So the first thing is that when somebody says this, especially in that way, it's as if we disagree. We don't disagree. You're saying the right things. You're saying holistic. You're saying prevention. You're saying clean diet. Those things are right and they sound great. And I preach those things first, man. Ask me for sleep support and I'll tell you camping's your best bet. Don't sleep on a bed of nails, right? Those kinds of things. Turn off your screens and devices after 8. If you got allergies, don't go outside. Realistically, though, clean your bedroom up. It's gross. Close your windows. Get your air filter going in your house and use anti-allergen mattress and pillow covers, right? That's holistic. That's thinking about all of the different things. So we don't disagree. But where we do disagree is that those concepts are specific to or only believed by the quote unquote holistic crowd, right? So we, those folks and I may feel a certain way about our healthcare system. And there's something that has to be said because it's something that I believe is obvious, but sometimes doesn't hit the masses as much as it should these days, which is no conventional medical doctor doesn't want you to do those things, right? Eat well, think about preventative care, holistic approaches. We all very much want that, right? So we disagree that sentiment of holistic is owned by the anti-medicine crowd. We disagree when a layperson or even one of those quote-unquote experts say holistic, but they mean anti-medicine. We disagree when wellness practices, very important things, are promoted above and exclusive of pharmaceutical options, supplements or medicines. So how do I know that these people that are talking really have never had any responsibility for treating health conditions? They said clean your diet up and don't use antihistamines, supplement or medicinal, right? So they've never actually had to suffer from this. They've never had to help somebody not suffer from this. You can eat the cleanest diet that you want all day long. You're still going to be freaking miserable. And if I told you to just eat a clean diet instead of giving you something that will help, you're going to get mad at me quick. So we don't disagree where folks who say this stuff think that we do, right? They think that this is a disagreement. They're posting what they believe to be a contrary position to what I'm saying. But we do disagree where they confidently sit in this paradigm. So that brings me to my second point, which is what seems innocent really isn't. And this is the why to why I'm talking. So I promise you, I'm not getting worked up about a social media post. You have to trust me. I do not care. I don't care to engage in the silliness of reacting to reactions on social media. I fought for COVID. It's not even a vaccine. It's an infection. And I was saying, hey, this is how we should handle an infection. And I had a fight with people, and that broke me. I'm not a fighter anymore. I'll let y'all have your opinion. But the reason that I'm saying something now is to bring light to this. These comments didn't come from lay people. I was saying lay people a lot, but they were coming from practitioners, from influencers. These folks that were saying this were bloggers and podcast hosts who specialize in wellness. I call out that seemingly innocuous rhetoric because I think it's important, especially when that stuff comes from a place of authority. Even if you're 100% in camp, Dr. Neal. If you're like, I want to get the best from both the health and the wellness industries, I'm understanding what's real and what's not real, right? I know for a fact that even those folks that are 100% in my boat, that if they get exposed to concepts like this on the regular, it can produce a change in mindset, even in those really great intending people. So it's really about the volume or the frequency of the exposure and how digestible that rhetoric is that has the power to change our minds. So if we put this imbalanced concept that these folks are promoting out into the world, it seems okay and harmless at first glance, and it's something that we should probably agree with because we don't eat well and we don't do preventative stuff, and it's not necessarily wrong. Again, it's just contributing to a larger growing problem, which I believe is the surge of post-truth garbage. And the third point that I'll say is that wellness practices that they're promoting, that I promote, they matter a lot, but hyper-focusing on any of them isn't holistic. And so here's what I'll say to you. We need more people out there in the world promoting wellness practices. And remember, wellness practices are the habits and the healthy choices that we make on a daily basis. We promote wellness practices being first and the most important step in our health and wellness journeys. They're foundational, and they're the base of my wellness pyramid. But they're not everything. They can't solve every problem, and they can't prevent every health concern. If your pancreas fails, there's no clean diet that's going to help your type 1 diabetes. And when I say that analogy, most people chuckle and they say, okay, I get it. But here's another one. If you have osteopenia, no amount of calcium or weight-bearing exercise is likely to rebuild your bones. That might be jarring to hear because there's so many people that will tell you otherwise. We want that sentiment to be true. We don't want the medicines. We want to take our calcium and we want to do yoga. And I'm not saying that calcium and yoga wellness practices are worthless. Quite the opposite. This analogy, the calcium and osteoporosis yoga analogy, tells us two things. One, wellness practices are an important portion of true holistic care. And two, it stresses the importance of wellness practices long before the health concerns surface. Which brings me to my fourth and final point. It's not preventative if you don't do them to prevent stuff. We understand that concept when I say it, I'm sure, but if we understand the real definition of holistic, holistic isn't something you pull out at the last minute in an attempt to avoid medications. Holistic is something that you do from day one. Wellness practices are things that you do on a regular basis. Holistic is considering and addressing all of those variables that contribute to our health and wellness. You want to be your healthiest and you want to be holistic. I agree, man. I'm with you. But that means that we have to think about everything, and we have to implement those practices and address those health concerns using therapy sometimes, right? Because we're too far along the path. Sometimes we have to use those conventional medicines, right? Supplements aren't strong enough. In fact, most times I would say they're not strong enough. We don't do our wellness practices early or often enough, or the disease that we're treating or preventing can only be resolved, truly resolved, with conventional care. If we deny that reality, it's only because we've bought into this false dichotomy, this natural versus pharmaceutical. That dichotomy isn't real. It's not real in practice. When we treat and prevent diseases, that's not real. We need to use all of the things. And it's not real from a business standpoint. What do I mean? Well, you can distrust and loathe the corruption in the medical industry. I do. But it doesn't mean that the supplement industry is automatically any better. They're the same corrupt animal, and they put profits over people. And you hear me say it every episode. We need to flip the health and wellness industry upside down. Our understanding of it all and the amount of trust that we put into all of these institutions. In the middle is this great new path, a reasonable one, right, where the best results are there for us. So when you're poking around in the wellness content space and someone says, well, you just have to clean up your diet or promote wellness practices as a superior answer, just think to yourself, I don't need your thoughts and prayers, man. I need all of it. I need true holistic care.